Hi, it's time for another verb of the day. Today's verb is vary. Let's take a moment to look at some of the definitions or the ways that we use this verb. First way, you might hear vary used is to mean to differ in size, amount, degree, or nature from something else of a same general class. Now, that definition is pretty long, but I want you to imagine that you are in the supermarket or the grocery store and you look for apples, right? There are going to be many differences, right? Some apples are going to be larger. Some of them will be cheaper, while others more expensive. So we could say here that the apples vary in price, they vary in size, and of course they're going to vary in taste. One might be sweeter than another. A second way the verb vary gets used is to mean to change from one condition, form, or state to another. Now, with the second definition, a lot of people think of the weather and how it changes, sometimes within the span of a few hours in certain places. A third way people use the verb vary is to mean to introduce changes into something in order to make it different. Sometimes people will talk about varying their diets. So they might be trying to introduce different foods, maybe foods that have different vitamins or minerals. Many times it's done to improve the quality of their. You should know that vary is a regular verb. To make the progressive form of this verb, all you're going to do is add ing to form varying. The past tense and participle forms of this verb can be made by first dropping the y, adding an I, and then adding ed. Now, our base verb, vary, ends with a vowel sound, and vowel sounds are always voiced. This means that the ed ending is just going to make a d sound. So I'm not adding an extra syllable as I say it. It should sound like this. Varied, varied. Okay. Now there are actually a number of phrasal verbs in connection with our verb of the day, so we're going to focus our discussion on those during today's video. The first phrasal verb we're going to discuss is to vary between. This can have three different meanings. The first would be to alternate between two or more different options, choices, or possibilities. Let's take a look at an example sentence. The artist's mediums vary between oil, watercolor, and pastels. So here we've got three different options for creating art, right? Different ways for this particular artist. Now, a second way, and I should say the artist's mediums vary between is an example of the simple present. Okay? So discussing someone's habit or routine. Now, the second way to use vary between is to mean to alternate or fluctuate between two or more different states or conditions. An example of this might be, I have varied between freezing and burning up today. This happens sometimes. So here, have varied between is my verb. It's an example of the present perfect, right? And so it means I'm changing between temperatures. At certain moments today, oh, it's so hot, right? And then other moments, oh, I'm freezing. So I'm alternating between those two states. A third way you might hear vary between used is to mean to change or differ between two or more people, things, or groups. An example of this might be, income taxes vary greatly between U.S. states. This is a true statement. It's another simple present. This is factual. So the tax rate, the tax brackets can be very different from state to state. And so we will describe them as varying. Let's keep talking about some other phrasal verbs you might encounter. The next is to vary from. This can also have 3 different meanings. One way to use it is to mean to differ from or be at odds with someone or something else. An example of this might be, witness accounts vary from the statement the victim gave to police. Right? So there's been some type of incident, right? And witnesses, people who watched it happen, right, described what they saw, but it differs, it sounds like quite a lot here, from the statement or the description the victim also shared. So usually when we're using this, it's sort of a serious difference or something that's important. A second way you'll hear vary from used is to mean to be different between 2 people, things, or groups. An example of this might be mask usages, or I should say usage, singular there, mask usage varies from country to country. Okay. Again, I think another factual statement, which is why you're seeing the simple present used there. In certain places or certain countries, it is more common to mask, particularly during cold and flu season, while in other places, you might not see anyone outside of medical professionals in a hospital wearing them. Just depends. A third way you'll hear vary from used is to mean to change or alter from one state to another. An example of this, today's weather has varied from sunny and pleasant to windy and stormy. So here's another present perfect example. We're describing kind of those different changes, and sometimes rather big and noticeable. The last phrasal verb we're going to discuss today is vary up. An example of, or the meaning of it rather, is to alter or change some factor, an aspect, or some element of something else. An example of this might be, they've been varying their workouts up this month. Here's an example of present perfect progressive or present perfect continuous. So we're describing something that started in the past, continues into the present. And so it seems like they've been changing things up. Maybe one day they're running, and another day they're swimming, and a third day they're lifting weights, and on day 4 they're doing yoga, right? So they're changing the aspect of the way they're exercising day after day. Now, let's spend a moment looking at some words that are related to our verb vary. And the first word we're going to discuss is variable. This can be used as a noun, and it has several different meanings. One way you'll hear variable used is to describe some element, a feature, or a factor that is likely to vary or change. An example of this might be, there are so many weather variables, we can't predict when we'll harvest the crops, right? So many different things to consider. How often is it going to rain? How hot is it going to be? How windy is it going to be? All of these things might affect when a farmer is able to harvest. A second way you might hear the noun variable used might be in a math class. So in math, many times we use this word variable to talk about a symbol that represents a mathematical object. So something that can change, something that is not staying the same or staying constant. An example of this might be, in the equation y equals 2x plus 1, x and y are the variables. So that's the equation of a line there, and we know that there will be different points along that line, and can result in different values for x and different values for y. Now you should also know that variable can be used as an adjective. Same spelling, same pronunciation on that, but the adjective variable can mean that something is not consistent. It doesn't have a fixed or set pattern. It can also mean that it's likely to change. An example of this might be, I have found the food to be highly variable here. Right? So perhaps someone's describing their experience at a restaurant. One time they eat there, it's amazing, right? Maybe one of the best meals they've ever had. Then the next time, right? It's horrible, right? And then a third time, maybe it's somewhere in the middle. So they don't know exactly what they're going to get. So the food has not been consistently good or consistently bad. It keeps changing. A second way the adjective variable gets used is to mean able to be changed or adapted. An example of how you might hear this used is in connection to a lot of tools. So one way I saw it advertised was, this sander has variable speeds. So you can change how fast a particular tool operates. Another related word you might encounter is the adverb varyingly. This is describing something being done in a way that changes or is different in amount or level. An example of this might be, the character is varyingly thoughtful and aloof throughout the story. So here, this sentence I borrowed, I think, from a description of a movie describing how at certain moments the character could be thoughtful, but then in other moments, right, he's not really paying attention to others. He was aloof. One last note for us today, and this, I shouldn't say it's a related word, but it's a word that could be easily confused. The word V-E-R-Y has the exact same pronunciation as our verb V-A-R-Y. It's vary, but I want you to know you should be using that as an adverb. And most commonly, you're going to be using it to describe something in a high degree. So an example of this might be, our last test was very hard. So here, very is describing the adjective hard. And I hope these videos make any future tests a little less difficult. But I'm so grateful that you all watch. I appreciate the comments, and you're always welcome to leave suggestions for future verbs. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great day.